I totally fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone has seen the PowerPoints, seen the notes, so we're all aware that we're going to talk about Sony, right?
I'm so
The
good.
joy of our life in terms of videography.
Absolutely. I've been shooting Sony for a really long time. So I mean, yeah. So
well, we're gonna start off with this neat little thing, and I feel like none of us really need to hear the audio from it. Just know the game is there. But yeah, welcome to this interview with us. I'm just gonna do a quick introduction of myself. I am Gabby Gutierrez. I work for the school business as a videographer and 3D person. I'm here with two lovely guests. One of them, Brendan. Who are you? And why are you here?
My door just slammed. Okay, so I'm a videographer, motion graphics artist, 3D compositor, VFX artist. Originally, when I first started out of college, I was doing filming. And originally, I was a Canon user, and my job we used Nikon, so I have experience in basically all three of the major ones, including Sony. Yeah, hopefully, I can share some wisdom.
Yeah, and like you have your own webtoon series too that you're using 3D animation. You're the head videographer for Anime Next.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I work for GoodRx, so we do filming. We film doctors using Sony products too.
A lot of hats.
A lot of hats.
Hats on hats on hats on hats.
You're just the top hat. But yeah, I know Brendan from college. He's been a great friend.
Aww.
Nerdum of anime.
So I treat you guys out to dinner. So.
Yes.
I'm down. I'm totally down.
Yeah. Well. Other guests. Introduce yourself and why you exist.
Hi. I'm Robbie Builian, and I exist to make sure I answer any questions on Sony equipment, especially with the photography and line. I've been shooting Sony for over a lot, maybe over 10 years, at least 12 years. And eventually I started working for Sony, and now I can share my knowledge in terms of my experiences. And if anyone has any questions about photo and video equipment, I'm going to be the one to answer. And you might be able to see me on some events or educational places. But I primarily love shooting photos and videos.
Great. Robbie is a representative from Sony. I also know him through Ramapo College. Has been a very big influencer on Sony products. I recently bought my newest camera off of it.
Raise your hand if you have a Sony camera in your arsenal.
Right now I'm streaming with the A6300, but recently Robbie has sold me his old
full frame. Barely old. It's amazing.
I've been having fun with it a lot.
Only 5,000 shots on that camera, so it's very young.
I was very surprised when you said that, just by the fact, like, are you explaining like a car mileage to me?
Kind of, yeah. So shutter actuations, there's a lifespan for every camera, but I believe cameras typically could hit over 250 to 500,000 shutters. So yeah, feel pretty confident with your cameras. They last a long time now.
Especially if you take them in to get a cleaning every so often. It's sponsored recently by Unique Photos that they're going to do during their event.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I've been loving it. Honestly, most of my Instagram now has been me shooting with it at work.
Perfect. Yeah, it's great. it's portable. You could take it with you, and you could use it for social media and professional works as well.
Yeah. All right. So how do we describe Sony? What makes them unique? Why are we even bothering going to this one camera brand, whereas there's so many other brands out there? Like Sony expands from multiple electronics, like entertainment, medical, and even strangely enough, finance. From what I read on the website, I'm just like,
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's like they actually give financial support. I'm just like, wait,
I'm not qualified for that.
Well, we're just focusing on the camera part of this.
I'm here for that. Yeah.
But like, can I ask, like, you, Robbie, as someone that has been in more in the camera field of Sony, do you feel like their resources kind of prove like how reliable they are as not just like a camera company, but just overall as
right
themselves?
Exactly. So it was a long time ago when Sony wasn't really in the professional photography game, really, about maybe 14 years ago. But they were making consumer level point and shoot cameras back in the day, and they were working with camera companies like Zeiss. So they had good relationships with really good glass companies to make great lenses, and they were making a majority of the sensors for cameras like the Nikon bodies and stuff like that. It was that moment where they bought Minolta and they acquired them. That's when they got into the professional photography game, and it's since developed into that. Once they got into the mirrorless world, then they had like the ability to continue growing, especially since they picked up Minolta, which was a very highly regarded camera company back in the day. And so they took their technology and they kept on growing, and they kept introducing innovations in the photography world. For Sony, it was very. I remember when I was made fun of, which isn't uncommon, but I was shooting Sony mirrorless cameras back in the day, or shooting Sony in general, and people would ask me why I'm shooting Sony. But eventually now, a majority of photographers are using Sony, and that's pretty much because they were progressing with the innovation. Back in the day when mirrorless started, it was seen as a joke, but now it is primarily what everyone's going towards. So when we were behind in the DSLR game, we were progressing into photography in the mirrorless world. And then now everyone's trying to catch up with Sony in terms of going mirrorless. So we do have a leg up on that now. So in terms of being ambitious with their innovation, and also having this background and the resources, because they also make cell phones, they make cameras, they make movies as well. And yeah, so I felt like that was a perfect process or perfect step for Sony to go into photography, and I'm super happy that they did.
I'm happy about
And the great thing too is that, or this might be something that people don't really think about, is that when mirrorless was coming into play, not only was it cheaper than a mirror, like a full frame mirror camera, but also weight less. So if you were an event photographer, like I was doing for a little bit, like you may not feel the weight difference, like maybe for like 10 minutes, but when you have to do it for hours and hours and hours, there is a major difference. And then the other thing too is that with the invention of three-axis gimbals, they also have a weight limit. So you can actually get a cheaper three-axis gimbal because it's mirrorless weigh less than the actual DSLRs.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I remember, like, I think you were in the camera store with me, Brendan, when I was first buying my camera, and the fact that someone was going to sell me a Fuji, like, mirrorless camera.
Yeah, I wonder who that guy was.
Well, he left a unique photo, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It should have been me helping you out.
Yeah. But it was the fact that, like, oh yeah, for someone like me with like tiny hands and coming into, you know, my first actual camera like that I would own, I thought it was like the most entry level for me that I felt more appropriate to, like, oh okay, this I feel comfortable, it's light enough for me, and I can travel with it. I would ride my bike with it on my back and then just like flip it out when I was like mid biking. Hasn't broken yet, so.
Exactly. I mean, I do that right now on a motorcycle. I just attach it on my book bag thing. There's like a little attachment from Peak Design, and I'm hitting 80 miles per hour, and I'm like, hasn't fallen yet. Okay, we're gonna keep going. But yeah. Honestly, durability as well. I don't know if you guys were able to see a video of in the Olympics, a camera was rolling down the mountain during a skiing event. It was the Sony A1. And essentially the only thing that broke, and I think it fell like 500 feet or something like that, but the only thing that broke was the LCD screen. The lens hood flew off, obviously, but it was still working. So it's kind of like it's been long in terms of improving the design of the camera as well. So yeah.
Sure. Brendan, how did you first hear about Sony, like, out of anything?
From this guy named Robbie. So
I was helping Brendan out in the photography department. He saw that I had a really old Sony camera back then. But yeah.
Yeah, because originally I was looking at Canons because that's where that's the next step in my career. So currently I was using not full frame cameras, but I knew that full frame was probably the next step, especially if I was going to do filming or VFX, because I need to understand the focal lengths of different lenses at full frame. It's just easier. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I ended up talking to Robbie because I knew Robbie was at Unique Photo, and he goes like, "Oh well, why don't you get Sony?" It's like, well, I don't know, why would I not like switch from a Canon? And then we started talking about prices. We started talking about mirrorless, and it's like, and at that point when I was doing my research, it was like, all right, yeah, like mirrorless is going to be the future. Sony's the leading in this. The only thing I was worried about was prices, was because of the lenses, because Sony lenses at the time were not third party. Yeah. So you had to get Sony lenses, and they were like $2,700 each. So that was actually the risky play when I was like actually looking into buying, was whether or not in a year third party lenses would come out that I could actually afford. So I did actually take that risk, and happy enough that Tamron was in 3 years have developed like a full line of like the standard 3 lenses that you should have. So
exactly. Oh,
I don't know what you're doing. Oh, so Gabby's screen is just becoming very fuzzy. Why?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's one of the great things about being in the mirrorless game the longest as well. We also shared our technology or lens technology to be able to be used third party, like Sigma and Tamron, who are great lens manufacturers. But there's now over 65 lenses available from Sony, and it's continuing to keep going up. And there are now more affordable lenses as well. So definitely check those out, because the compact G lenses go deep to later, but yeah, there's more affordable lenses now for sure.
No, I remember even adapters too for Sony cameras. Was it the first few lenses that I had were from film cameras that my grandfather had.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, I really want to use this, and I know like about the whole mount thing, and I was just like, oh, fuck, all right. It's like film lenses, okay. But it was like Sony has become so popular where actual productions for adapters started coming out more often, which has been like, oh wow, like you don't have to just shell out a bunch of money. You can actually experiment with other lenses.
Yeah.
But still like go with a mirrorless camera, which I don't know.
Exactly.
It's bad, but I like it.
I think it's great. You get to test out whatever, especially for cameras that had a mirror on it. Because there is no mirror, it's easy to make the adapters because you just need to replace that flange in between. So that's why you could use a lot of different adapters, especially for film lenses. Yeah.
Definitely will say like I'm loyal to Sony now because of like, oh, I can do these things and then not feel as restricted anymore.
Absolutely.
Will I buy a Zeiss lens? Probably not. But will I get a Tamron lens? Possibly.
Why not all of it? No. Yeah.
You have the budget, Gabby.
Yeah.
You're working now. You can afford it all.
We're not gonna
No.
talk about that right now. I realized this week how much I should be making.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Temple, great. Give me raise. Thank you. All right. So let's go on with the idea of like, okay, let's personify. Let's make an anime character. Let's like be creators. What would Sony look like if it was a person? Like who are they? Like what makes them up? Saying like, oh, if I looked around in the street, I'm just like, oh, that's definitely a Sony person.
You know the bonk Shiba? It's like tiny and super buff.
Yes.
That's kind of how I would probably describe it. I don't know if you guys get, but that's how I picture it at least. How about you, Brendan?
I was going to go for more of the professor type because they're knowledgeable.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
Like totally different direction now.
My imagination's elsewhere.
I was just going for like, oh, the young and outdoorsy person, but really just wants to be a shut-in inside.
Do you mean yourself or?
Projecting, yes. But that brings up the point of like, oh, I feel like I am a Sony customer now because
Yeah.
I'm the persona of Sony.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to describe because there's a lot of different types of customers that Sony does have, and it does vary. And just like photography, you could shoot a lot of different styles as well. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to put a finger on it. But yeah.
Well, like if I were to say like what would be like, flags for use if I was like a new person saying what do I need in a camera? Mm-hmm. What would bring up the flags of like I'm talking and you notice something like, oh, a Sony would be great for them. Those needs of like you would have in a conversation with someone that you're buying with, or even you, Brenda, like if you interacted with any photographers or videographers, like as they're talking, like, yeah, I really like this Sony camera, like you'd be like, oh, okay, but of course they would. Kind of.
Yeah. Go, Brandon. Go ahead.
Oh, me? Oh, dang.
Yeah, you go first.
I don't know. I don't think there's a specific trait that you look for. It's experience was go scouting for photographers at different anime conventions for us. I don't really look at like what camera they're using. It's until like I ask like about camera specific stuff. But in terms of like what features, I don't think there's really a way to differentiate between them, between like any of the different brands. You just have a love for photography, or you have a love for something that needs to be shot using photography or videography, and that's basically how you know that person's interested in something in our field.
Yeah. I feel like for Sony shooters specifically, when weight is a major concern for them, especially for traveling photographers, people who do a lot of like vacationing, or a lot of people who are able to get out, and payload is very important for when they're camping or something like that, or when they're traveling. I immediately think Sony. And then I also the autofocusing speeds and what it's capable of, because Sony makes a lot of different versions of their own cameras. I feel like the hard part is getting confused between the A7, A7R, A7S, A9, A1. There's so many different models, but it's because it fits a lot of different needs for different types of photographers. So, I mean, sports photographers, professional photographers, but I think the major one is when payload is a major concern, you could make a very nice camera package with very light lenses, and that's what Sony was known for. But then we also make the professional lenses for professional photographers if they need it to be a little bit larger. There's a vertical grip that could be attached below. So yeah, but personally, the people who really consider payload traveling is immediately like my first thought to like, oh, hey, you're probably a Sony shooter, probably.
You like Instagram? It has a wireless connection.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go forward. And I was just like thinking this out loud because I after buying the camera. I was like, it's just a camera, right? Why do I like it?
Yeah.
I can't actually see what it says because I'm blind as a bat right now. I guess, yeah, we kind of went over like what makes it special. Let's see. Affordability. You have the passion for it, so you're fine with it.
Yeah,
I think Sony just bought like Funimation and Crunchyroll, so that like they're just too big to fail now.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they did it.
Yeah, so like they'll be around forever. Like who knows about Kina and Nikon? They're only in the photo. They're only in photos. Who knows?
The Crunchyroll mascot is officially a Sony mascot.
Okay, that really explains it because what was it? I was looking for the Purpose video for Sony, and that's the name of the title is Purpose, and they showed a clip from Demon Slayer, and I was like, wait,
hold on, who did this?
I did not know Sony actually acquired like that studio to actually get into anime.
Yeah, so Crunchyroll was essentially on Sony's team, essentially.
Nice. Get all the nerds from that. All your anime and cosplay needs.
Indeed.
Yeah. Actually, Robbie, Brennan, can you actually explain about? Have you ever used any other Sony camera before the Alpha series? Because lately I've been noticing like kind of like this not cult, but more of like this community called the Alpha team in a way. I just always been like curious, like, is this just because of the line itself? Like, why is this series continuing?
I have no experience. It's all you, Robbie.
Okay. Well, it used to be it was the Alpha, and the Minolta had Alpha. I think it was the Dynex Alpha cameras. I believe in their mirrorless when it was, or their DSLRs when it was a their mount was Alpha mount or something like that. They had the Dynex A9 as well. So a lot of the Minolta cameras were also designated with an A or Alpha. So I think they just brought that along from Minolta. But when it started being mirrorless, it was NEX was the original one. I think the NEX 5 was the first mirrorless camera that they produced. And then Taylor Swift got on board and she was promoting it too. So I was like, we got Taylor Swift. Okay. But in terms of like Alpha, right? That was the question. Like, where does that group stand? Yeah, I would probably say that Alpha was something that carried on from Minolta in terms of the legacy, I guess.
The dynasty.
Legacy.
Chinese emperor.
Legacy.
Alpha. Oh, wait. I got scared for a second because it actually screams. Alpha.
What? Alpha. Oh yes, the A7 IV.
Yeah, I a part of it was just mesmerizing the fact that the music gives me some mad Westworld vibes. But the idea of like, a travel and like experience with this camera has been like the key imagery that I've been seeing from this.
Yeah, it's like the 4th generation. So we've heard a lot of feedback from all the customers, and that's one of my main jobs is to relay that feedback that everyone's told us. And it's not like it goes unheard, a lot of people one of the main complaints was like the grip was too small for a lot of the male photographers, so they're just like, let's just size it up and make it a little bit more form-fitting. And you'll see that with the A7 IV, A7S III, and the A1. It just like throughout the lines as each generation passed, it just slowly got a little bit bigger and kept on adding more technology into it.
Yeah, even the idea of the flip display compared to like the A6300.
Yeah, that was a large. Yeah, it was like, come on, when are we gonna get the variable angle screen? And I was like, but at least with the A7 IV, it's a very hybrid camera. So a lot of photographers never needed that like selfie view ever. So it was that's why it was prioritized as a photographer, like a photography camera. But now that it's more hybrid that's why the A7S Mark III, the A7C that you have, and the A7 Mark IV, they have about because one of the things to for videography or telling your own story, you'll be able to see yourself in those cameras for sure.
That felt very poetic this way, so I see myself.
See yourself.
Felt like more fun.
You're gonna get copyright strike.
Oh my god, I just got an error from YouTube.
Good thing we're recording on them.
We're down. Yeah, Disney is strong. It's a strong entity. All right. So we're gonna go on to the idea of what's the drive to buy us. So just from looking at Sony's website alone, like I do not see anything below probably $400 in terms of like, their bodies.
Yeah. Especially new.
Yeah. So do you feel like there's more of a market for like the used ones, or people are willing to pay out for like new, brand spanking new, top of the line, just came out day of, and there's like a line, kind of like how iPhone was. Like,
yeah. I would say because cameras like the A6000, when was the A6000 released? Because that's a very old camera, but it's still a very, very great camera. And the fact that cameras like the A7 Mark II, although that's 2 generations behind, it's one of the most affordable full frame cameras you could get. It's not going to have all the bells and whistles, but you're still shooting full frame. You're still getting better low light capability. So I feel like going with the older models, you do have that option as well. The A6000 was released in, let's see, February 2014. 8 years old, and I still see it being used or sold in camera stores. And that is definitely around that sub 500 area or 100. But that also means that you could get into the system very early if you buy it used, especially with cameras that are like 8 years old. You could definitely get that for a cheaper price in the used market as well. So it's easier, I would say, for a lot of photographers who want to get into mirrorless to afford to get into it by being able to use the same lenses still and swapping out into that. But yeah.
Sweet. Brendan, do you want to do videography and photography again? Like crack outside the 3D realm and go back into the film world?
Well, I'm going to have to in June when we go back to MNX. So,
there you go.
But yeah, like in terms of like whether or not I think people would buy it, I think it really just depends on your need. And then it also depends on who's referring you. Because basically it's just about like, again, it's like about networking, just like in business. Like I probably wouldn't have looked at Sony unless Robbie told me about Sony. It's the reason why you should show. Or these are the reasons why like mirrorless is going to be like the next big thing. It's like, and then like then do your own research. Make sure that like you are okay with it, or like make sure that you are ready for shelling out all that money, because it could easily be $2,000 because the 400 one is not what you need it for. So I mean, that's what I think basically.
What's your take on like point and shoots? It's pretty much dead now, right? Like,
yeah, I don't think point and shoots are that,
because their cell phones pretty much do it.
Yeah, so, basically. And the other thing too is that like with the point and shoots, you only had one lens, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you can't exchange it.
Yeah, so like basically the only reason why like cell phone cameras have gotten so good that like they basically replace point and shoots.
Yeah.
But because they have a small sensor size, like there's still a market for the full frame cameras and having interchangeable lenses.
Right.
But, yeah, I think point and shoots.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It definitely is a large investment to get into it. But I think the main thing that you're looking to get out of these cameras is to outperform point and shoot cameras or your cell phone, So yeah, and I think that it's way more accessible now especially with the power of social media as well, because everyone wants to share high quality moments of their life on social media or just memories in general.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems like that's where it's mostly heading towards. Even most of Sony's like webpage is very much like Instagram like format of
Mm-hmm.
like what am I doing today with my Sony camera? What adventures am I having with it?
Right. I mean, the cameras itself are catered to a lot of those things now too. That the features are on in Sony cameras. So if you record vertically on a Sony camera, your A7C, you transfer to your phone, it'll be sent to you vertically. So you could just post that on social media. And the A7C, the A7 Mark IV, you could now just plug it in for 1080p output, and you could use it as a webcam without using a capture card. So it's definitely adapting to what's happening now.
Especially like from the work of home life.
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting, I don't know, not bragged on, but made fun of, in how I would be in the office or in my room, and just the quality itself of like, Gabby, why do you look so good on camera right now? And it's like, oh, it's because like I would do like the focus thing. I'd be like, oh, it's because I'm using a professional camera right now. I'm not using a web camera. I'm not using my phone. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I can use these other cheaper options, but the idea of getting what I want, like the look, has been like beneficial, even if it's like, you know, a simple Zoom call now.
It's kind of like wear a suit for interview now. I feel like it gives you a really good first impression when you're using a capture card or a professional camera to like record any like a Zoom call essentially.
Yeah. Brendan, do you want to join us in our cameras?
Yeah. Do you want a capture card?
I could probably use a capture card. I only have my web camera right now.
Got you, fam.
How do you feel knowing that?
Tell
us how you feel.
I'm okay. I only paid $20 for the webcam. It's just what I needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, you could pay $20 for a capture card too, but you also have to get like an HDMI cable. There's a bunch of other stuff that. Yeah. It's a very big overhead, or like at least a starting capital, to get into.
I mean, God, I want to just start my own Twitch stream. Like, what am I doing with my life right now?
Gabby's already ready for it. If you look at this nice design over here.
Well, it's mostly for my cat when I work. Yeah. Also, keyboard making, because you need to emphasize how good your keyboard sounds and looks. So, exactly. Hold up.
Right, Brandon.
You're not going to trigger me on stream.
Brandon, yeah, Brandon, come on, buddy.
Come on. We'll build you one. No biggie. Me and Robbie split a desoldering gun, so
we did. It's coming. Very exciting. I'm excited. We could take apart your keyboard and upgrade it. So, you know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, that's all the questions I have for this assignment.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
thanks
for being here. I know some of y'all are tired right now, but I do appreciate.
I'm never.
You should be.
I think that's what the cool kids are doing now, right?